Maybe you're designing a logo for an architecture-related company. Or maybe you're designing a logo for an actual building. Or maybe the company is strongly associated with a city, known for a particular building or monument. Buildings can be a great source of logo inspiration. They might be literal or metaphorical, realistic or highly abstracted. I'm going to run through my attempt to create a logo for the De La Warr Pavilion, a fantastic modernist building located in Bexhill-on-Sea on England's south coast. For my first attempt, I placed a source image and I image traced it and then simplified it as much as I could. Here is my source image. Here it is in Photoshop. And I've used every trick I know to make this source image as crisp and as simple as possible. You can see that I've masked out any unnecessary detail. I've applied an excessive amount of sharpening. Not that that improves the appearance of the photographic image, but it will improve how it responds to tracing. I've made it black and white, and I've increased the contrast. So when I trace this in Illustrator, that's the sort of result that I get. It's then a question of evaluating my tracing results, turning on Ignore White, taking down the noise, and then expanding the result and further cleaning this up. Requires a lot more cleanup. So I'm going to hide my edges and then come and choose my eraser tool to start with and just get rid of the stuff that we can easily remove. But I'm not going to spend too long on this because even though it's getting simpler and I could invest more time to make it simpler still, it's far too complicated. But this was informative. Doing this has made me focus on what are the essential elements of this. And if we look at the layers panel, we can see that I've gone through various iterations trying to distill it further, every time simplifying it a bit more than the last. I've dispensed with the image tracing, and now I'm just manually tracing using the pen tool to create solid objects and filling them. So I ended up with something like this. Still a work in progress, but I think that this has some potential. I got there by manually tracing over the same source image a number of filled shapes. And now I'm going to use my Live Paint to fill them with color. So I'll start out by selecting this, and before I go any further, I want to make sure that everything has a white fill and no stroke. Then I'll come and choose my Live Paint bucket and click to make a Live Paint group. It's now time to turn back on my Show Edges. On my Swatches panel, I have a color group. I'm going to start out by filling in the black areas. Now, of course, it helps to have the source image near at hand when you're doing this. So let me just back out for a moment and I'll turn the manual trace layer on and then just move it to the side. So now back with my Live Paint group. Let's hide those layers. And I'm really working on the interplay of the positive and negative space here. And where the railings overlap the lighter parts of the building and the sky, then they become positive. So there is some back and forth here, and you're bound to go wrong at some points, as I am doing. But the nice thing about Live Paint is that you can always go back and change your mind. All right, let's just see how I'm doing with that. I'm now going to turn off my guides, and you can see that it's very much a work in progress. Quite a few things about this need to be fixed. Let's just go back and see where I was with the earlier version. The essential point here is that through working with iterations of this, I've been able to really focus on what I think is the essence of the building and simplify it down to just the really essential parts.